And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, the final stretch is upon us, because now there is only 50 days left to go until RageCon 4, the Punishment Quad, begins properly. And so far, I think in terms of everything we've got made so far, it's currently about just over 400 videos I've got made since I started this miraculous and incredibly arduous project, since at least, I'm going to say, roughly like the first third of July is when I started this. And realistically, the hard work is only really going to begin once the actual festivities begin. Because if you think that there is that 400 videos already sounds a bit excessive and quite a lot, well, that is nothing compared to what's actually going to happen once the events begin properly. Because in the first place, you have to take into account special events like specific day. I think there's like about 25 special events I want to do all across 2025. I mean, kind of makes sense, the 25 special events. Many of those include New Year's Day, the beginning of Lent, Easter Sunday, the 4th of July, for whatever that's worth, VE Day, Veterans Day, Labor Day, Halloween, Christmas. Basically, the whole of November is going to be sort of a very special event for a very particular reason, which... Actually, you know what? Since I'm going to be sharing the story about the significance of November, I feel like I need to do the right thing and sort of share it with you guys a little bit about why November is such a particular month in my life. And well, okay, so the story goes that it starts all the way back in 2015, 9 years ago. My nan hadn't been on this earth for at least 6 weeks at this point. I was so incredibly, not behind, but just sort of, it was starting to become like really hard to keep up with the pace of coursework when I was in the upper six, when I was only 17. And one night, I think it was like, it might have been the 6th or the 7th of November, but basically it was a Sunday. That's what it began on a Sunday evening, so just after Sunday tea, and I decided to just sort of like, for whatever reason, just to get on with just doing a little bit of photography coursework. And here's like the most incredible thing about this event is that not only did I say I was getting on with it, but guess what? I was also having a lot of fun with it. And by the time I was ready to go to bed that night, I had done so much prep work, I'd done so much research in terms of my photography coursework that I was having fun with it. And that's the thing I need to emphasize, is that I was enjoying what I was doing, something I hadn't done ever since I started doing photography. I was having fun with what I was doing, and I took a tremendous sense of pride in the fact that actually I managed to do such an incredible amount of work in about the span of about 3.5 hours. And then, as it goes, everything else that week, and then all the way through the rest of November, everything fell in line as well. I'd sort of found a new gear that I didn't even think was even possible. I found a way to actually become not only hyper productive, but to take pride, to take an accomplishment, and to be more involved in everything I was doing. Because up until that point, 2015 was kind of hard to be a little bit involved in certain things because I didn't know where I was going. And with, the fact that my family was sort of behind, just getting ready to say goodbye to my nan and stuff like that, things were sort of, I wasn't necessarily certain about what I was even going to do, because at that point, as with so many other stages in my life, I felt like I had to put whatever I want to decide for a moment to make sure my family was okay and getting stuff like that. But that's been a big thing throughout so much of my life, and something I've never really been that open about is that, I'll still go I'll still go that distance to put my family first, even if at times it feels like, because it's that level of loyalty is the sort of thing that I don't really think anybody's kind of noticed before. But that's like, if there is only one thing I am most loyal to, like, throughout my life, is my family. That's because, think about, if it weren't for them, I wouldn't have a roof over my head. I wouldn't have been fed, clothed, nurtured, otherwise cared for all the way for growing up and stuff like that. So it makes sense, and it didn't seem fair to suggest anything else, because that's just what I knew as a matter of course. So yeah, that's one thing. But it was also in occasions, ladies and gentlemen, as I've just listed, between taking immense pride in what I was doing, is that probably it was one of the first times in a very long time I really truly felt a sense of independence. I really felt like I was actually doing all of this for myself. I wasn't doing it just because I was, maybe subconsciously I was doing it because I knew that I had to make good somehow or other. But I had to get on and do it, because that at the time, for whatever reason, it just seemed to be the only thing that mattered. I can't necessarily say I was using it as a coping mechanism, because the idea of just trying to do well at school does that seem like a coping mechanism? Just trying to do well at school just to take your mind off other things? Well, the reason why I say that is because, remember, this was when I was in the upper six. And if I thought that, and I've explained this before, by the way, when I was talking about 10 years after I'd taken my GCSEs, if you thought that me trying to do my GCSEs and that everybody was piling on the pressure throughout the entire year for me to do well, that was nothing comparison to when I was doing my A-levels, because it wasn't just passing my exams. That wasn't the only thing that was on people's minds. Is that other people were also, it wasn't other people, but it only really dawned on certain people that this would be it. This would be the final year we would have at school. This was, as they say, it. And all of us would be going over the top. It's a bit like the final episode of Blackadder, except nowhere near as depressing, but kind of daunting all the same. And believe you me, I am no Captain Darling. Certainly no way. Yeah. So, and this is a thing I felt for like November, like September came and went like I never thought of before. October too. Because I think when you're under that amount of like pressure, and when things start to culminate and you really do put things into perspective, that's when you sort of really do look down inside yourself and you begin to realize time isn't not your friend, but time isn't your enemy. It isn't your friend either. Time is merely industry. It is a de facto true neutral. Time has what I like to refer to as a complete lack of aptitude, and is 100% impartial. It doesn't care for anyone or anything. It just exists. And if you can hear that right now, that's the sound of my 2 clocks ticking away in the background. It's only a careful reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that time is not too far away from us all. And what better way to be reminded of it of every single time I go to sleep and every single time I wake up in the morning, that I'm staring time in the face. That's why, by the way, I don't even bother changing my clocks to the daylight hours, because if you thought I was under enough pressure already to make RageCon 4 a success before, why not really drill the point forward, ladies and gentlemen, by not even pulling the clocks back, just to remind myself that I might be running out of time twice as fast. Well, at least that's how I tend to look at it anyway. But so really, there isn't any other point to the story outside of this huge emphasis on time, and how it's how I curiously developed the very interesting mantra that I was going to enjoy the rest of my life, whether I liked it or not, because of the knowledge that time, even for me, will run out, and it will run out for everybody. I know some people like to live in the idea that time will never run out, but it does. And sometimes it does far faster than any of us can even anticipate. It's a bit like literally trying to watch half the commentary in the news about people like Mr. Beast or KSI and Logan Paul, and how you can tell they don't really like being in the same room together as each other. Not because they dislike each other, but I don't really feel like do they have much in common? I don't know. I don't really watch those guys, because I don't really think that sort of thing is for me, the more I think about it. That doesn't, but then again, how do I know if I don't try that sort of thing? You never know. But that's just, it's for those who do care and stuff like that. But the point I was trying to make is that those guys may feel that they are on top of the world. They may feel as if like they have all the time in the world. But as I'm sure we all know, nobody stays on top forever. And it'll go off eventually, like a really bad lunch lead, the ones that are completely full of mold. Yeah, I've heard a thing or two about that. So, what I have to do right now, ladies and gentlemen, just to bring this video to a close, is that, well, it means, as I've said before, and it's the sort of thing I know you probably have heard from me say a few times, is that most people in my sort of situation, where they would talk about the mass amount of pressure of trying to make all these videos and trying to get everything organized and to make sure everything falls neatly into place, which would have been a task for about a team of roughly about 10 people. But this has all been done by one person, so I can only take the blame for everything that happens, incidentally. But then, of course, remember, I'll just get on with it and say it, is that I am telling myself to stop and to give up, to not fight it, but to embrace it if I don't want to change. I've got to get rid of all this slack and all of this dead weight that's like hanging around my neck about not being able to do it and not actually doing the things in the moment that I need to. And I know that if it sounds like I'm being too harsh on myself, no, if anything, I'm not being hard enough, because if I was being hard on myself, I would be performing 10 times better. What I need I need that push, because, well, I know deep down what my goals are. I know deep down what I want out of this opportunity. So if I want it that bad, then I'm just going to have to work for it. It's as simple as that. So, putting that into perspective, I hope everybody enjoys and everybody understands. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys again next time. So take care, and bye-bye for now.